Hey, I've got another episode for you today, and I always love learning about nutrition and how it impacts other parts of our bodies. So today, the episode is going to be two licensed therapists talking with a nutritional therapy practitioner about how nutrition impacts PMS symptoms. So if you're a guy, don't click off of this yet, because guess what? The kind of spoiler alert is that this is all about hormonal balance, and you have hormones too if you're a guy. And this is really going to provide some in-depth, helpful information about how you can truly gain more control over how you experience your symptoms. And look at how this impacts your mental health as well, because these two things can be very closely correlated. And again, leaving with tips for how nutrition and the choices that you make about the fuel that you put in your body can truly help you feel better.
Sage is a 501c3 nonprofit organization building community by providing education and counseling about physical, mental, and spiritual well-being. We encourage all of our listeners to find their own path to what holistic wellness means to you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Leona Huseman, LMFT at Sage Wellness Center, and we are here with some other Sage brilliant minds, just doing a little chat tonight. If you girls want to introduce yourselves.
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Crystal Springy, and I am the nutritional therapy practitioner at Sage and also a Reiki level 2 practitioner.
And I am Renee Lorch. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I am also a Reiki 2 practitioner.
I thought for a second you were going to say, and I'm awesome.
And
you are, Renee.
All right. Well, we are going to chat a little bit today about PMS and how nutrition is a contributor to the symptoms that a lot of us actually endure monthly. Some of you might not know much about this. That's okay. We're actually learning as well. This conversation came, I think, a couple months ago, where I think Crystal and I were on another Zoom meeting, and someone mentioned PMS, and she just was like, "Hey, well, what are you eating?" And I'm like, "Why? Why do you want to know that?" And I was immediately intrigued with how much nutrition plays a big part in something that I think a lot of us feel is out of our control. Right? Like, I've talked to friends, colleagues, doctors, even clients that we nonchalantly say, "This is how I feel," but it is what it is. And I think we kind of have there's a stigma out there that it's our own problem, right? Individualistically, whatever happens to our bodies biologically, it's our issue, our problem. Not really talked about to the point where it's like, "Oh, can I address this?" It's just kind of a part of life. That's how I've always interpreted it. I'm wondering if you ladies interpreted it the same way, whether it was previously or still view it that way.
I would say yes. I always thought it was so normal, like 1 to 2 weeks right before you start getting the symptoms, you physically and emotionally can feel it coming on, until I really dove into nutrition. And of course, one of the modules is talking about balancing hormones with nutrition. And then I really started to realize and start to connect the dots of what I was learning and cleaning up my diet. And then I can always just tell how good my diet was during that month on how severe your PMS symptoms are. And that's a really good way to manage that. But yes, I was on the same page just until I started, playing around with myself and recognizing the differences in myself with what I was learning. And yeah, we can definitely talk about that a little bit later on.
Yeah. How about you, Renee?
I don't know. I don't really have much to add outside of what both of you said, but I think for me, there is that, like, every woman, I feel like, always complains about, "Oh, I'm PMSing," and I realized, through my work as a therapist, having clients who have way beyond PMS symptoms, symptoms that are actually considered a like diagnosable. I wonder out there if people even realize that it was a diagnosable disorder. It's PMDD, so premenstrual dysphoric disorder. Doesn't roll off the tongue very easily. And so I think for me, I think there's this misconception with like PMSing is just kind of like, oh, my stomach, or oh, I'm hungry, I'm craving chocolate, but there's so much more to it, especially once we get into the PMDD diagnoses. And so I think it would be good I had to learn as a clinician through, working with my clients, the difference between, what is normal for PMDD, or what is normal for PMS, what everybody, every woman who's having a menstrual cycle goes through, versus the PMDD. And so I think it would be, definitely a good topic. And my first go-to is to think of Crystal and how just diet, cleaning up the diet. I feel like everything always comes back to the diet. But that was something for me, I think, as a clinician, just learning. A lot of things that I didn't even know, the difference between how PMDD can affect so many different parts of you. But we can get into that.
Yeah, no, I'm on the same page. I didn't know about PMDD. I just knew about PMS, right? Premenstrual syndrome, which I think on most of us are going to experience some degree of it. So I think it would, to say you don't have a single symptom, I personally don't know anyone who doesn't. I'm sure maybe there are people who are like, no, it just comes and goes and we're good. But for you to say, Renee, that, or to suggest that it is diagnosable, 10 years ago, I would have been, oh, come on. It's just what happens to our bodies. Our mothers, our grandmothers have been doing it for years. So when I was thinking along those lines, I'm like, wow, that's like a stigma. Like I am adding to the stigma that PMS is a female problem. It's biological. Everyone, does it or goes through it. Stop complaining about it. But in reality, PMDD is severe symptoms of PMS. And when we talk about our clients, it's because our clients are experiencing symptoms that are debilitating, debilitating on a monthly cycle, to the point where it restricts them from daily life. And that's something we want to bring a little bit of awareness to, that these symptoms can actually get so bad that it can cause suicidal ideation or attempts or severe depression. And it can make you feel like you don't know yourself, and that maybe you need more help, but maybe feel ashamed that it only happens in cycles, right? And that you might feel alone in this process and this feeling, and that even addressing the stigma about it, that it's not just a female problem. It's something that is, when it's out of control, when it's out of our reach to really deal with it in a healthy way, that it is something you can go to your doctor for, and or get a referral to a therapist, and or get a referral to a nutritionist. And so definitely wanted to touch base on that. But Crystal, I think we really want to hear what information or just education you have that you have come across that you think would be pertinent for us to know, even if it's just more introducing the topic, and just give a little insight on how something as simple as nutrition can help alleviate some of these really severe symptoms, and just to let people know that there are other options from a holistic standpoint. It's not just something that we have to take medication for, or that we just have to deal with. So just curious to know what you have for us.
And is that chocolate bar really helping our PMS symptoms?
No, as bad as you want it, but no. And the thing to really kind of say off of what you were saying with like PMS and PMD, to distinguish it between other mental health symptoms, is that, like you said, it does come in cycles. So it's always kind of falling and getting exacerbated within that like 2 week to 7 day mark before your period. So that's how you can tell where you do have good days and bad days during that fluctuation. And one of the most interesting things that when I was learning about all of this is that normal balanced hormones, you should not have one PMS symptom, which is so interesting. Like you're saying, it should naturally come and go, but just because of our lifestyle and all the things that can affect a hormonal imbalance, many of us do have the PMS symptoms just because of how many things can affect it. And kind of just like with a little introduction, just in regards to hormones in general, is that they are all super intricately connected. So if one's going to be off balance, all the other ones kind of fall off balance as well. So it's not only nutrition that we look at, but it's like your whole entire lifestyle. So for example, like cortisol and adrenaline are all stress hormones. So if there's a lot of stress going on, that's going to cause a reproductive hormonal imbalance. Insulin is a hormone too. So when there's a blood sugar imbalance, that's going to all affect your reproductive system as well. So you can kind of just see, like, as they're all shifting, they all need to be working together. So of course, when there's a stress response or a blood sugar imbalance, everything just kind of freaks out. So really kind of noting too, like, what are your stress levels like, but then also to diet, which is and you guys said earlier that, diet is kind of something to address for everything you may be experiencing. And it's so true, only because literally the building blocks of your body are made from the food that you eat. So if you're not eating nutrient dense foods, then systems in your body obviously are not going to work properly because you don't have the right nutrients that your body's needs to work optimally. So when it comes to PMS specifically in regards to hormones, I think of the two hormones, which is estrogen and progesterone, which they kind of complement each other. So throughout the times of our cycle, they're both within different levels, and they need to be in levels within each other to, have a hormonal balance. But then there's a lot of things within our lifestyle that cause estrogen out of balance and cause progesterone out of balance, which then kind of messes up that cycle, I guess you can say. A lot of the time we see with PMS an estrogen dominance and low progesterone.
Yes. It's probably why we cry and get emotional. Right?
Yes, exactly. And that's based off of our everyday lifestyle. That's the most common that we see. You'll never really see high progesterone, low estrogen unless there's birth control or hormone replacement involved. But usually it's the complete opposite. And so estrogen dominance, a lot of the time women have that puffiness in their face, the irritability, they're super emotional. A lot of women have that visceral waist kind of fat building up too, because estrogen basically builds up in fat. So the more of that fat that you do have, the more estrogen that you have, the more estrogen that you have, the more of that fat builds up. And when it comes to food, a lot of the time it's okay, where are we getting all of these estrogen from? And that could be from meat that is just pumped up with estrogen. So a lot of the time during when they're raising the cattle, they inject it with estrogen to plump it up and make it bigger and make it fatter to get more meat. So you really want to make sure you're having meat with no hormones added, no antibiotics added. You get extra estrogen from beauty products that you have. Plastics like BIP plastics, cleaning products, laundry detergent, they're all called xenoestrogen. So it's all these estrogen things that mimic estrogen that build up in the body. That's why, where the holistic lifestyle comes into play, because all of that affects your hormones. So that's kind of the idea of why people go clean beauty, cleaning products.
Makes sense. Why eat healthy if you're gonna wash your face and your clothes with all kinds of chemicals? It makes sense.
Yeah, and it's always a balance too, wherever you can start first. If you can't eat the cleaner foods, then look at your cleaning products. And then also too, what causes that is a sluggish liver, because your liver is what cleans up excess hormones out of the body. So if your liver is sluggish, of course, based off of beauty products, cleaning products, toxic food that you eat, toxic air, medications, alcohol, your liver just becomes so sluggish because of the everyday life. So then it's not able to then clean up the estrogen. So it's like all this stuff is building up, which causes that. And then the other reason is estrogen becomes low. And that's because during a stress response, cortisol actually steals progesterone to use as a precursor for it. So when people are chronically in like this stress response, which again, it's very normal in our everyday life, we are all usually in a fight or flight response unless you're actively managing it. So as that's chronically going, progesterone is just going down, 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 and progesterone and estrogen is going high. And then of course, as the cycle of your PMS comes, then estrogen and progesterone are just kind of all over the place, causing the symptoms as your cycle is fluctuating.
I didn't know. I didn't know any of that. I didn't know any of that. That was amazing. I feel like I want to take a poll and ask how many people have PMS symptoms, and then tell them that anybody who says yes, they need to go see Crystal and fix their gut because it's not normal.
Wow.
I thought it was normal.
It's not. And I would say one thing I didn't mention, which I would say is the biggest cause of a hormonal imbalance, is too much excess sugar and like simple carbohydrates in the diet. I know, right?
So mean.
Because of course too, insulin, when you're eating all these sugars, we were talking about insulin before, insulin's going up and down as you're eating the sugar. So one, that's a stress on the body. Two, that's a hormone being imbalanced. And you can tell if you cut out sugar, I can guarantee you will have at least 50% less hormone PMS symptoms than you would normally.
So why do people crave chocolate?
Yes.
I know. I remember in college, we would, like, my roommates and I would just grab all of our change and go straight to the vending machines and to get all the chocolate. And it's just like, you need it. And is there an explanation for kind of besides when you feel bad, you just want junk food, but is there like a reason why you crave sugar?
Yeah, it's when progesterone is so low, it's like, and during like a stress response, your body craves sugar to have that fuel of glucose that your body needs like during that stress response. So of course, a stress response only isn't like a psychological stressor. It's also low progesterone in the body. It's also hormones fluctuating. It's also being emotional. It's also the food that you're eating. So I would say it's just fueling the stress response.
Yeah, that makes sense.
As you were explaining, Crystal, what the PMS cycle is, or the menstrual cycle is, I was thinking like, oh my gosh, this is like an event happening in your body. Like, it's not just something that, okay, it's happening, go. Like, what needs to take place biologically for this to happen is an event in itself, which sounds like it could be a stressful event on your body already. And then we're talking about environmental stresses, interpersonal stresses, and then how we cope with it, right? Coping mechanisms. And one of them is eating, how we eat. And I'll be the first one to raise my hand as I go to sugar, chocolate, the simple carbs. And then maybe psychologically it does make me feel good. I don't know.
It would, yeah. It increases dopamine levels for sure.
Yeah. And so then I'm like, wait, so everything she's just saying right now, I'm only aiding or adding to my system.
It's a faux happiness.
It is. Yeah. Because when you're eating just so much sugar, it increases, we said insulin, which goes along with like testosterone, like that PCOS, testosterone, you can get extra hairs, you can get acne when there's excess testosterone. And when that happens, estrogen is just like flooding your whole entire system at that point with the blood. So blood sugar dysregulation from eating the sugar causes that estrogen to just raise. Yeah.
So if you have hormonal breakouts, asking for a friend, if you never fails, have the hormonal breakouts and blood work comes back fine, it sounds like sugar is the culprit. Take out the sugar.
Yeah, sugar and just digestive inflammation, because acne is like a inflammatory response on the skin. So if she's able, but of course then sugar causes the inflammation.
I love that you said
So-
she.
Well, yeah, right.
It's clearly advice for myself, Krista. It's
Oh.
okay.
Your skin looks
She was
so
really
clear
going
to
along
me all
with
the time though. Your skin always looks so clear, so
But
that's why
I
I
do-
didn't expect you.
I have consistent hormonal breakouts. And
Mhm.
so now the Facebook world can hear that. But
Yeah.
but it is because like blood work came back fine. All of my, the estrogen and all of those levels were fine. And so it is frustrating to not know. So you're saying obviously the sugar, and then
I would say sugar, caffeine, and alcohol
okay.
are kind of things to look at.
All of the vices we live
All
off
of
of.
the vice. I know, that's why I say it like,
Oh.
ooh.
I know.
You
Don't
know,
shoot the messenger.
right now. So, what's interesting, and this is maybe for another topic or even to have another specialist come on board, but when you were talking about stress on the body and then adding to the stress with the coping what clearly is an unhealthy coping mechanism to reach for simple sugars and carbohydrates. For myself, I just thought infertility, but there's got to be a link to some women who are having some infertility issues. And I can say I'm one of them.
Mhm.
As we were speaking, I went, oh my gosh, I was in a high stressful job for
Mhm.
2 years. And then with that stress, I wasn't sleeping well.
Right.
I was, I had classic signs of burnout, right? So all of the signs that come together. However, one thing that happened with me was I thought I was dying. I was like, oh my gosh, like I don't sleep. I can't remember. I had brain fog. I started having anxiety attacks, like true anxiety attacks, debilitating. I went to see a functional doctor, right? The more holistic route. And when they did my blood work, one thing that was super abnormal was I was barely producing progesterone.
Yeah.
And I could not get pregnant and I didn't know why, but I wasn't at that point of really trying to find out.
Mhm.
And turns out, because I saw that doctor, I started taking progesterone as a supplement and then boom, I'm pregnant. And
Yeah.
so I never understood why. I just accepted my fate in it all. But as you're speaking, I went, so I couldn't get pregnant because I was stressed out and eating horribly,
Yep.
which affected my hormone levels, and how some women that could actually be like me, where there's like an aspect of infertility, but not to the point where I needed to go deeper. It was literally changing my diet. And after that, I had to change my diet. I had to quit my job. I had to
Mhm.
reduce my stress to make sure I had a healthy pregnancy at that, because my body was so used to being in flight or fight mode, and it didn't know how to relax. And so as you're talking, I'm like, oh my gosh, this can be linked to so much more when it comes to the reproductive system. And I think it's just so fascinating to know that this is completely linked and how we have the answers, right? That we have so much information, but I'm wondering why we resist it, right? Why do we resist this healthy change? And let's go mental health route. What is keeping us from reaching out to a nutritionist? Is it the truth? Do we not want to hear that we have to change our diet or change our unhealthy coping mechanisms? Or, I don't know, like I have so many questions, and wondering how many of my clients, or even us, our colleagues, have these simple tools. And I'm even thyroid, right? Thyroid issues, and how people who are dealing with thinning hair, or the lack of moisture in their skin, or just these simple things that, due to a medical condition, can be helped, can be assisted by what we are ingesting. You just said in the beginning, like I don't know how you said it, we're the building blocks of our body, it's what we eat. And so when you say it like that, it's like a little shameful over here. like, oh, I'm doing this to me.
But the thing is, the sad thing is, we're not educated that in our world nowadays. So of course, like, you can't even blame yourself for not knowing that, because people aren't talking about it. And especially with like what you're saying in infertility, like I have such a passion for working with those clients, because something as simple as increasing the progesterone levels, because it's supposed to fertilize, the progesterone basically carries the baby throughout the whole
Yes.
entire process, right?
Mhm.
And just think about like a fight or flight situation. It takes priority. And basically during a fight or flight situation is survival. You have to survive during that time, right? And it's like normal day stressors is not like a survival type issue now, but that's what our brain responds that way. So of course, like you don't need to reproduce and have babies or sleep when there's like a lion literally chasing you right now. So it steals all of those
Yeah.
resources to
Yeah.
fuel the stress response, and nothing else matters. And food
Makes
then
sense.
is also a stress on the body. It's all about the nervous system. And food is either what exacerbates it or calms it.
I am so going to use that metaphor in my sessions
Ah,
about
Yeah.
fight or flight mode. I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, you're being chased right now.
Yeah. I mean, and the thing is too, it's like there's no lions obviously chasing us, but now it's deadlines, a pandemic, the politics, the food we're eating, a lack of
Mhm.
sleep, gossip, crime channels. There's just so much constant. There's like 1,000 lions chasing us now.
yeah.
And then our body shuts down because it doesn't have any resources to work properly. It goes for any system in the body, really.
Yeah, no, I hear you on that. And it's a new perspective. Crystal, I was wondering if you could share for us and some of our viewers on what is it like for someone to, when they walk into your office, they finally get a referral, or they like, hey, I saw this Facebook thing and maybe I should address my nutrition. What is it like for someone to come and see you? What are some common fears or misconceptions about nutrition, and how would you ease someone into really embracing this lifestyle? Because it's not easy, right? To change our food, what we've grown up on, right? As
Right.
opposed to say our great grandparents, where they weren't exposed to all this delicious food that's not good
Yeah.
for us. What
Yeah.
advice or again, some experiences you've had to help our viewers and myself, I mean, us to understand what this lifestyle change looks like and how we can embrace it. It's really something that is unknown to a lot of us, and I think a lot of us don't even think we have this option.
Yeah. So in regards to like a process, everything is completely customized because every single person comes to me in a completely different spot and completely ready for something completely different. So any fear about me, making you do something you're not ready for, don't worry about that at all. We're always starting fresh. But my biggest suggestion is to I always have them reconnect to their bodies. Our minds and our bodies, we've been living in such a disconnect, and really tuning in and recognizing the symptoms that you're feeling are your body's way of saying you're off balance. Your body wants you to listen to it. And normally we cover it up with a medication, we ignore it, we don't want to address it. And then it's just going to keep manifesting and manifesting. So the biggest way to do that is, one, to just not want to feel that way anymore. Know that you can feel a lot better. Find your why. Finding your why is so cliche, but it's like literally, if no one understands why they're doing something, then they're never going to do it. They're never going to make the changes. But it's just understanding, like for example, like you're just so over having the PMS and having the symptoms and feeling fatigued and not being able to sleep. And as you make little shifts, it's like the law of attraction, right? You just add a little bit of things that raise your vibrations, that make you feel better, and step and step and step until it comes into the snowball effect and you're ready. And does that make sense?
Yeah.
I kind of like lost track a little bit about that. I would just say connect to your body and just know that. And as you eat something more healthy, more clean, more nutritious, recognize how you feel. As you eat the sugar, recognize, are you a lot more emotional? Are your PMS symptoms worse? And just connecting to what you're eating and the symptoms that you have learned about yourself, and just see what gets exacerbated and what doesn't.
Sure. No, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing. I felt like a little elevated as you were talking. I'm like, yes, yes, yes.
I
Yeah.
I have been one of Crystal's clients, so I can speak about what it feels like and like what to expect. And I remember like you were like talking about just like being like grounded and meditating and calming and I love that. I feel like you're just more of like a unicorn. You're not just a nutritionist where it's like, get rid of that, get rid of that. And I remember too, doing a Whole30 class, and I just wasn't in the right place in my life to commit to it. And I showed up and there was no shame that I wasn't. And so, but I learned all the amazing things. And I think, I mean, not that this is a plug for Crystal, but I'm gonna kind of make it. I think that's
Oh, you're so sweet.
but I think it's so helpful to know. I remember coming to you and I was like, I remember signing up for this like Whole30 group, and people are like, oh, you're on day 15, you licked your fingers of the cookie batter you're making, start all over. And you're like,
So
come
bad.
on, that's, and I think it is good to know that there's it's not scary to go to somebody. I mean, Crystal's not scary, first of all, but what I learned is it's about food, but not only that, but it is about just listening to the body and that's a lot of like what we're talking about with the PMS and PMDD. We just have to listen to our body and what, whether it's nutrition or what I think is, was maybe I should say new information, like Liana was saying, that, I think I read it's like 3%, 75% of women who have menstrual cycles report PMS symptoms, but only 3%, 3 to 5% report or have PMDD. And it does get as severe as going into like, depression, anxiety, and suicidal ideations. And I think that's something that is just really underreported or under talked about. And so I think just thinking as a therapist and with a nutritionist, there's no like, don't ever feel ashamed or ever feel like it's normal. Like, I'm going through this, oh, my menstrual cycle's coming and I'm feeling really hopeless and anxious, on edge or moody. And, oh, I'm just going to have to wait it out and, shove my face with chocolate and it'll get, but so I guess if you are feeling this way, you don't have to always feel this way. It's there are options that are available, obviously, and we have them at Sage. So, but I was surprised how when you were talking about that, Liana, was that something like information that you were like new to learn, or is it something that you've always known about how it can get as severe as having, suicidal, or part of that, it can get as intense as.
Yeah, I was educated by a client not too long ago, and I had to do some research. So I knew that PMDD symptoms were more on the severe side, but I didn't know how severe it could get and how many people are misdiagnosed and given medication, whether through your MD or a psychiatrist. And it could be like, oh, it's severe depression, or it's, oh, you must be experiencing something medically. So here are, and I get it, process of elimination. So we are practitioners. Everyone's a practitioner. We're practicing, we're trying to figure it out. But many women, even young women, they suffer for years before someone along the way say, hey, it's coming in cycles, right? And it's always around this time. And it's as simple as that, to say, yes, it's cycling. And that should be your first indication that it could be linked to your female reproductive system, and that could be the main source. And from there, I think somehow Crystal and I got on the subject, and she started enlightening me about how much nutrition can be a holistic approach before we go to medication, or if the medication's not working and making you feel a certain way. And I think this topic, just talking about it out loud, is helping to break the stigma of a biological experience that we are supposed to own as a very quiet, secretive event that takes place in our bodies. And I think that it's just really important to make sure that we are talking about it a little bit more. Even if you're just listening, maybe whoever's out there, you don't share this info, but it reaches one more person that says, hey, I think that might be something I'm struggling with. And I was looking at it a completely different way. And
Right.
maybe I'm not comfortable going to an MD yet, or talking to my therapist about it, or, and maybe a nutritionist can be a great place to start. And
Yeah.
there can be, I think the education behind it is so crucial. So like everything that Crystal has mentioned today, and even prior to this conversation, was blowing my mind.
I know. I didn't know it wasn't normal. I'm
No.
like,
Oh no.
you're gonna have a line out the door, Crystal, because
Yes, I hope so.
I know.
Well, just to wrap things up, thank you for everyone out there who joined us tonight. And we hope that, you got some information that you didn't know was available to you. And of course, Crystal is here to help all of us, obviously. So please reach out to her. And this is an investment, right? We're investing in ourselves, we're investing in our bodies. And what Crystal mentioned was connect with your body. The first thing you can do to connect is to listen. Sit
Yes.
down and listen. Maybe even write down what symptoms. Our body is the best source of telling us what is going on mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physiologically, biologically. So if you want to connect with your body, just sit and listen. Maybe write some of those symptoms down, do a little research, and reach out. We're here, right? We're all here working together. So thank you, Crystal and Renee, for tonight. And let's all just check in with our bodies and see what's going on. Okay. So see you later, girls.
Bye.
Thank you for spending some of your time today with us at Sage Holistic Health and Wellness Center. If you like what we're all about, please consider supporting our nonprofit organization by making a tax-deductible donation. To do this, you can go to our website at www.sagewellnessctr.org and click on Donate in the upper right-hand corner. We look forward to spending some time again with you real soon. Take good care.